Four Knights of the Apocalypse chapter 139 is here, and overall, this was a pretty solid chapter. We got Myrtle and Nazian's confrontation, we get more stuff with Tiori, and we potentially get the tease of Nazian's true identity, potentially giving us the answer to Nazian's and who he truly is by the end of the chapter, and next week we might get all our answers and theories confirmed or completely disproven. There is a section at the end of this chapter that I will most likely not show, and we will get to it. But all I gotta say is, all around pretty decent chapter. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into things. So chapter 139 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Unseen Pain. And cover image is just an image of Tiori acting cute, while Nazian's just staring off in the background wondering what's going on. The chapter starts off with last week, where Nazian's confronted Myrtle over the fairy who did the changeling prank. Myrtle goes on to say, why is a human meddling in fairy affairs? Nazian says before you resort to violence, you should probably ask him why he did something like this. Myrtle goes on to say that to these lot, changelings are just a game they play. Asking them why is a waste of time. Nazian says, well, first we need to return the baby to its parents and get the fairy child back. It'd be easier to ask him to guide us. That's what I think, at least. And I like how Tiori's in the background just sticking her tongue out, mocking her brother, agreeing with everything Nazian says. Myrtle goes on to say, who do you think you are? You think I'm not aware of that? Your sight disgusts me, human. Get out of the fairy domain at once. And Nazian just looks kind of solemnly at Myrtle as he goes on to say, oh, don't worry about that. I will. Once my valued of friends opens his eyes, I will leave. I like how Tiori in the background is just being like, no, hey, we can't leave, and just calls her brother a blockhead. Myrtle drops the fairy, as he just says, I said at once. As Nazian just passes the baby over to Tiori, as he begins to get ready to square up against Myrtle. So we get a fight this chapter. And yeah, I like how Myrtle's being pretty cocky about it, being like, oh, you're gonna get ready to fight me? In that case, I won't hold back, as he lunges towards Nazian, and Nazian continues to dodge and then parry some of Myrtle's attacks, as he pulls out his two blades and enchants them, ready to fight back. Myrtle says, that's what I like to see, but do you really think those cheap knives can beat me? As him and Nazian continue to fight, and Nazian parries a few more. Myrtle slices at Nazian once more, and Nazian ends up dropping his weapons. Myrtle launches at Nazian, but Nazian then ends up saying enchant, Henbane and Henbane, as he launches two needles at Myrtle's chest, as he wonders what's going on. Tiori cheering in the background. I'm concerned that she is tossing the baby up in the air like she's it's a ball, so probably don't trust Tiori with a baby. But Nazian walks up to Myrtle slowly and says, and that's the end of it. You'll be too numb to move for a while. But then Myrtle just quickly kicks Nazian square in the chest, knocking him into the ground. And Nazian is asking why. That poison acted instantly on you. As Myrtle just takes a sword and points it towards Nazian's neck. As he says, it's over. He looks down at Nazian, with Nazian panting but still looking ferociously at him, full of determination. And that pisses off Myrtle, as Isolde just calls out no. And then she summons a giant pig, saying summon Sin, Boar's Sin. Now this is confirmed because of the games that Tiori is a summoner type magic, and her summonings are based off of the emblems of the 7 deadly sins. So right now, we got the Boar Sin, so that's funny, and it literally just looks like Hawk. But yeah, Myrtle just says, don't meddle in a man-to-man duel. As Tiori just says, well, I'm going to, alright? And she then launches that Boar Sin attack at Myrtle, knocking him into the ground. Agi says goodbye to her summon after it hits him. As Myrtle gets up from the rubble, he begins to get incredibly dizzy. He tries to compose himself as Tiori goes towards Nazian's. Myrtle ends up saying, that's enough. You're such a killjoy. I'll go return the baby for you. As he asks Tiori for the baby. But Tiori just ends up being an airhead and just says, no eating it, alright? And I just like how they're just doing some kind of sibling banter of Tiori just teasing her older brother. But then Myrtle then begins to get sick and I believe throw up and choke as well. Nazian tries to help him, but he knocks Nazian's hand away and says, keep my name out of your mouth. He pulls out what looks like a drug and eats it. After a second, he then composes himself and he starts to feel better. He then kicks the fairy that did the changeling prank and says, get up and guide me. Run on me and you're dead, you got it? As he then walks away. So this potentially means that Myrtle has some sort of illness and needs to take this medicine for potentially an illness that he might have. Now people have had theories that he is not actually the child of King Indian. It might actually be a human that just grew up in the fairy realm believing he was a fairy. So maybe this medicine was a way to that King made to help him survive in the fairy realm, because potentially humans can't stay in the fairy realm for too long, and maybe that's why they were asking Nazian if he had any trouble health-wise while being in the fairy realm for so long, and could also end up going towards the theory that Nazianz isn't actually human. We then cut to sometime later as Nazianz and Tiare are walking around. Nazianz ends up saying, "I first came to the fairy kingdom 2 years ago, but Myrtle's treatment of me as a nuisance this entire time." Tiare just says, "It's all in your head." Myrtle cops an attitude with everybody. But Nazianz says, "Really?" Because normally he's quite kind to the other fairy. Nazianz looks solemnly as he says, "I do think my humanness is a factor here. Fairies generally have a tendency to stay on guard with us." Tiare kind of looks over and sees that there are a couple of fairies hiding behind the tree. She flies up and says, "Well, maybe some fairies are like that, but there's me, you know? And Mom and Dad and all my siblings besides Myrtle all love you." But Nazianz asks if that's really so, because he says that sometimes King and Diane essentially give him the scariest looks, referring to what happened last chapter, and that he'd like to believe he's imagining it. Now, there are theories that maybe they think he is a fairy, maybe they think he's hiding something, or something like that. Might know something about Nazianz that he himself does not. Or maybe Nazianz is probably imagining it as something else, and that is not King and Diane's initial intentions. But as Nazianz is getting in their head, Tiare just says, "Well, you are, okay?" as she grabs Nazianz's hat and begins to fly away, stating, "Keep going on like that, and you'll never get your hat back," as Nazianz runs after Tiare. Nazianz runs after her as Tiare says, "If anything, I don't understand you. Why do you defend the fairy who changed out the baby?" She says, "Honestly, he went too far with this one. It's a huge stress on the parents of both children." Nazianz asks, why did I defend him? Well, he deserves to be condemned, yes. But he stops walking and says, "I was abandoned as a child," as this takes Tiare off guard, as he begins to say, "I don't know why my parents decided to do away with me, but I don't think it matters, Frank. For me, spending my years with Ordo and my sister, then getting to meet Percival and my friends, I couldn't be happier. Maybe others think I've had a rough life, but if anything, I'm glad of my parents doing what they did." And I like how Nazianz takes the fact that he was abandoned and just says, "That was a good thing. My life has been pretty good, all things considered. Ordo, his sister Dolores, and Percival and the rest of his friends." He's, aside from having to fight Chaos Knights and fighting for his life, obviously, his life's been pretty good. And he kind of is content with that. But Tiare is just goofing around saying, "And that's why you were taking his side?" That makes no sense at all. And to an extent, yes. But I think Nazianz just feels more for the baby in this instance, and maybe probably putting two together, maybe he was part of a prank in the past. A few minutes pass as Nazianz goes to a huge lake with Tiare, as he says how pretty it is. Tiare says that this is Lake Olorso. Its waters are super relaxing and make your skin shiny and release the bonds of your heart too. Nazianz asks what they're doing here, as Tiare just basically removes all her clothes and gets ready to take a bath, inviting Nazianz to get in with her as she begins to pull off his jacket, as Nazianz is just denying everything. She shouldn't take off her clothes in front of other people, and that he really means that she should just stop. But Tiare just says, "What's the big problem? After all, you're not even a boy, are you?" As the chapter ends with Isolde behind Nazianz, as Nazianz has a shocked look on their face. Now, obviously, throughout this entire series, we've used basically he for Nazianz, as everyone has said he was a guy. Even Nazianz said that they were a guy. But now it seems like the theories of Nazianz secretly being a girl have been essentially confirmed, perhaps in this chapter, by Tiare and her presumptions. And next chapter, we'll most likely get the full-on reveal of Nazianz potentially being a girl. Maybe Nazianz is trans if we go with that logic. If this is what Tiare is getting from Nazianz. And this is an interesting way to go about things. Obviously, I did not touch upon the fact that Tiare is naked right now because I'm not showing that in this video. Monetization and all that, and even the last page, I might just be censoring it, or I might not even show it whatsoever. So I feel like that was kind of unnecessary to get to this point. But hey, silver linings, I guess. She's 18. I'm not a fan of this scene, but to each their own. But I will commend Nakaba. He basically went a whole year without having any actual fan service in this series, so that's more than a lot of series that do have fan service in them. So gotta give credit where credit is due, I guess. And when you really think about it, Four Knights has had very little fan service in comparison to like 7 Deadly Sins, so every now and again, I guess it's gonna happen. But that's really all my thoughts on the matter. We might have actual things with Myrtle potentially being an actual human, and thinking that he's King of the Ants' kid. Maybe he was adopted for all we know. Nazianz might be a fairy. Nazianz is probably secretly a girl. We have no real conclusive evidence, but Tayori seems to have this conclusion about Nazienz, and this might be where the story is going, and we're going to explore Nazienz a lot more in the next chapter. It might even get more insight on why King Diane had been giving Nazienz this look ever since they came to the Fairy King's Forest 2 years ago. But that's really all I have to say on the matter. It was nice seeing Tayori using her magic. It was nice seeing a quick battle between Nazienz and Myrtle, Nazienz holding his own. He did get taken out by having his guard taken down in that 1 second, thinking that he affected Myrtle, and that's in a split second, but it probably took a second to affect them for all we know. And there might be more to Myrtle than meets the eye. And Nazienz potentially being a girl based off Tayori's assumptions. But we won't know for sure until next chapter. But what did you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.